Hello, everyone tuning in online. Today we're going to be, well, let me hop through this real quick. My name is Emmett. I'm a manager of engineering here at Black Airplane. I have a background in native Android and iOS development. I've been using Flutter for over 3 years. We've published over 12 different Flutter apps here, and I love Flutter so much that I use it on my own projects as well. I want to give a quick thank you to Black Airplane for both the food, beer, and the location that we get to use here. Black Airplane is a leading development agency in the Southeast, and we have a special team of people here that produce top quality work, and we're capable of building pretty much anything. So if you need help on your next project, please reach out to us and let us know. Today we're going to be doing a Flutter showcase, so this will be a little bit different. I've selected 5 different Flutter projects from the Flutter Showcase collection, and they all have videos that we're going to watch together. And then afterwards, we're going to recap some of the important points on why they chose Flutter and why they're deciding to use it over some other frameworks. So we're going to be mainly looking at Flutter developer stories. And again, these are just short videos where they interview the teams or founders and recap the problem they're solving and the specific things that help them succeed. Let's go ahead and hop over to our first video. I'm hoping that the audio here will come through just fine, but I'm also going to play it over my laptop, so I'm going to mute our microphones while I play this. So give me 1 second.
Beautiful design was the critical success factor for Reflectly. Reflectly is a journaling app that we created to counteract the stress that comes with social media and technology. Digital well-being is important now more than ever, so our goal for this app is to provide a safe space and break from the stress that technology can bring. Therefore, this app must be personalized, safe, and beautiful, so all users can open up and feel they have a unique relationship with Reflectly.
The beginnings of Reflectly surely was very humble. We were a very small team and only 2 engineers. However, we wanted to reach users on both iOS and Android. So we built the first version of Reflectly using a traditional cross-platform framework. But given that Reflectly is all about beautiful design and user experience, we felt restricted in our ability to deliver a consistent personalized design for both platforms. For example, frequently shadows were cut off and animation were always sluggish. And so it became clear to us that we needed to find a new solution. And luckily we found Flutter.
And it just worked. So out of the box, we got an extreme amount of value that we can then use, and we knew we had to use in Reflectly. And that was kind of a key deciding moment. And from the first line of Flutter code we've written, we were done in only 2.5 months. That included some large new features, like our entire premium subscription implementation. Flutter paints every pixel on the screen directly. So now we don't have to worry anymore about differences between iOS and Android render our content. It still adapts to the unique characteristics of each platform. We can keep a common code base and still build iOS and Android-specific UI where it's appropriate. It was a revelation for us that we're actually able to move so fast while still not compromising on our visions.
So Flutter is great because it gives you control of every single pixel on the screen, but it also allows you to actually structure your code in a way that's maintainable and refactorable. For example, to create the elegant and informative new view transitions, we use the hero widget. And because we're able to nest basic widgets across the Flutter framework, our initial build of the UI was quick and effective while still maintaining a great performance.
So we deployed the app to millions of users all around the world, and they loved it.
After we launched Reflectly 2.0, one thing that made us particularly happy was how well the design was received. We thought it was beautiful, but it was great to hear that from our users as well.
Overall, we're very satisfied with how Flutter is performing. It has enabled us to build the beautiful UI that we envisioned, which got us featured in Apple's new apps we love. It has cut our development time in half, and we can release new features simultaneously on Android and iOS.
And now, with Flutter for the web, we can deploy our existing code base for Android, iOS, and the web.
With Flutter, we're able to deliver this beautiful experience to millions of users. And month over month, we're seeing double-digit growth.
All right, so let's recap everything that they hit here. So again, Reflectly is a beautiful journaling app, and some things that I want to point out is they had a small team of only 2 engineers, and they also tried other cross-platform frameworks, and they complained about those mainly due to sluggish animations and incorrect shadow implementation. And this, for them, was their bread and butter, was exactly how their app looked. So this gave them unique control that other frameworks just simply couldn't. Their first version took only 2.5 months with 2 engineers, which is great. That's a very quick turnaround time for a mobile app. And the common code base, while not giving up Android and iOS specifics when needed. So they were able to basically keep the app looking identical across platforms, except for really core parts of the UI like menus and stuff like that that normal Android and iOS users would be used to. I also picked this app because it had a lot of success winning awards from Apple, which I thought was very notable since this was not built as a native iOS app. So far, it's won Editor's Choice, App of the Day, and New Apps We Love. So it's a very award-winning app, which is great to see a Flutter app winning stuff like that. And also, overall, it says they cut dev time by about 50%, which is huge. So let's hop over to our next example, which is Push.
You ever traveled somewhere and saw kids playing soccer? There's something really fascinating about how sport transcends all cultures, languages, history. Over the years, I've dabbled in every sport imaginable. And I think that's part of the reason when I launched Push that I was absolutely inspired by how we can help athletes across all sports.
I've represented the British diving team since 2015, competing at European and world level. This is really where fine margins make all the difference, which is why I started using Push.
Push is an advanced strength training wearable. Part of our mission is to optimize athletic training, making sure that when an athlete is walking into the gym, they're actually getting the most that their body can afford to give that day.
Push gives me rep by rep feedback in real time, so my lifting becomes more flexible and efficient, which helps me improve my strength as a diver.
We were constantly getting requests for Android support. And one of our challenges is that we were a small team, and we knew that trying to support 2 different code bases was going to be super difficult. With Flutter, we are able to save roughly a day a week in just syncing 2 different code bases. It's really enabled us to push out a lot more features a lot faster. Being a wearable, we really needed to make sure that the Bluetooth connection was going to be robust and reliable, that it can handle any type of data transfer that we need. And we were blown away by just how performant Flutter was. We really wanted to make sure that our technology can scale and can help impact athletes' lives at various levels of development. And that's something that I'm really proud of.
Push gives me motivation to see how far I can go and what I can achieve. That ultimately means the Olympics.
All right, so that was Push. So let's break this down and their opinions on Flutter. So initially, Push was too small to support Android and iOS before Flutter. So they initially just launched for iOS, and then what really pushed them to Flutter was a huge amount of users who were requesting Android support. They were big on the increased productivity, which helped them save time. They mentioned getting almost a day back per week. One thing they also mentioned is robust Bluetooth and capabilities to connect to any type of devices, which is why I chose this as one of the videos to mention here. We've also connected with various types of devices and apps that we've built here at Black Airplane, and there is no reason you should be strayed away from using Flutter with interacting with physical devices. They overall were blown away by Flutter's performance, and they're kind of a success story now because since then they've been purchased by Whoop Band, and they're now under the brand Whoop Unite. So Whoop is a very big kind of health tracking band similar to like an Apple Watch or something like that, very popular. Let's go ahead and head into our next video, which is going to be Nubank.
At Nubank, our mission is to fight complexity and empower people. One of the things that makes us different is that focus on technology. We were cloud native, mobile first, and we gave people a bank in their hands that's safe and accessible 24/7.
We had a lot of mobile engineers which were specific to Android and iOS. We wanted to ship features to production consistently, but sometimes we had a feature that came for Android earlier than iOS, and it's not good for our customers.
So we found it was the time for us to look at this seriously. We thought that if we fight complexity, starting with our employees, and we give them the joy of designing simple systems that are well tested, we're actually enabling our customers to have a simpler experience and have better control of their financial lives. So we tasked a small task force with the mission of doing research and development on a few hybrid platforms for mobile.
So Flutter had everything we needed right out of the box. Good documentation to how to integrate to our app and how to reload that really works. Support from the community, its tooling.
Here in Nubank, we have a culture that really nurtures testing. So having a test framework that built in, that just works, that we can do unit tests and integration tests without so much trouble is something that was really important to us.
We coordinate the work between designers, engineers, and the different teams across Nubank in an easier way, because everyone is talking about the same framework.
We used to have multiple and inconsistent component libraries throughout the app, and now we have one library. We can get more creative using Flutter.
The first features that we launched in Flutter, it was transfer points from our rewards program. These features, they were using Flutter in our new design system. And these launches were faster because we could deploy at the same time on Android and iOS.
Every new feature is gonna start it in Flutter, and after that, we're gonna migrate the old flows that we have in the app to use Flutter as well.
We're ready to take that step and help most of our engineers become full stack if they want. They can focus on just learning the hybrid platform and contribute to the mobile app. The product team is really excited about the next step. We can use the liberties of Flutter to make things a little bit more fun, even in a banking app.
Awesome. So let's talk about Nubank. So Nubank is an example of a much larger company making a switch to Flutter. So they had issues keeping feature parity before Flutter when they had to develop basically the same new features twice, once for Android and one for iOS. And they would end up launching at different times, which made it confusing to handle overall. They loved things that Flutter had just out of the box, like the great documentation, hot reload that works, the community, and then also the test suite out of the box. It made it significantly easier to coordinate between their design and development teams. And also, they used something that's very unique to Flutter, which was a partial rollout instead of rebuilding the entire application. So there's actually a not widely talked about feature of Flutter where you can just build in a Flutter section of an app into a native app. So 85% of your app can be a native app, and then it will basically open just a Flutter portion of that app. This was hugely influential in being able to switch this big client from native over to Flutter because they were able to just slowly roll out feature by feature for Flutter instead of having to rebuild their entire app, which would probably have been a multi-year process. It's also really exciting seeing banking in Flutter, which basically just means they were able to find ways to make the security portions of it up to snuff for banking, which is really exciting. All right. Next up, we're going to talk about Dream 11.
Dream 11 is India's largest sports game with around 50 million registered user base. It's a platform that lets users play fantasy cricket, football, kabaddi, basketball, and hockey. And users can put their sporting knowledge to test and compete with other users.
Many people in India are really excited about sports. For me, say for watching a game of cricket, I think the most fun part about it is having those healthy discussions and arguments with friends on, hey, why did they select this player in the team today? Or why did they go with 5 specialist bowlers versus 6? One way to settle these arguments is quite simple. You just create your team on Dream 11 and select the player you think is going to perform as your captain and then see who wins.
But we don't want to stop there. What we want is to constantly come up with new ideas and concepts and create an ecosystem of apps to enhance the user's sporting experience. So we want technologies that help us move at a very rapid pace, and that's where Flutter comes in.
We were looking for a framework which will help us develop in both iOS and Android together.
So we wanted to do a small POC and check if Flutter really works for us. Like, what's the development time, what's the effort taken.
As our first step with Flutter, we developed our app Power Predictor. Power Predictor is an app that you can use to predict the outcome of cricket games. Since Android has a lion's share of the Indian market, we thought it made sense to start developing an Android version first. The biggest challenge that we had was we only were 3 developers and we all were from different backgrounds, but Flutter made it easy. The Dart language, basically, that's very intuitive.
Even if we hire new engineers for Flutter, it's very easy to onboard them onto the platform.
There are many features in Flutter that I like. It has a nice integration with dev tools like Android Studio.
We really loved hot reloading, instantly debugging your application.
If you just make any changes, you save your file and you can immediately see the outcome of it on the emulator or your device. That really helps the developer to develop quickly.
So after Android was live and running, we thought the natural step would be to create an iOS app. We had seen that it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to get the application up and running with similar frameworks because you need to do platform-specific changes. But with Flutter, the application was up and running in 2 days, which was really amazing. It's single code base in essence. Being sports-focused, we actually promote competition a lot within the team.
So when we completed our Power Predictor app, we challenged our colleagues to crash the app. They tried very hard.
To their dismay and our surprise, Flutter apps couldn't be crashed. We couldn't consistently reproduce any issues. So that's amazing that Flutter handles errors really well. In the future, we plan on using Flutter for a lot of our projects because Flutter has just turned out to be a good choice for our team.
All right, so let's take a quick look at Dream 11. One of the big reasons that I included this in our showcase today is purely their user base. The user base today has broken over 50 million users, which is a huge amount to have on a Flutter app. So it goes to show that Flutter can also hold up to massive user bases without any sort of issues there. This was, again, started with a small team, and after building their initial Android app, their iOS counterpart was up and running in 2 days. They also, throughout that process, fell in love with Flutter and were very surprised by all the error handling and out-of-the-box things that came with Flutter. So now let's take a look at our last video here. This is going to be a little bit different. It's not a Flutter development story. It was part of the Flutter Windows launch when they took Windows out of beta, but this app is just so cool that we definitely have to share it here today.
Hi, I'm Guido, the co-founder of Rive. Rive allows creators to add rich, animated, interactive content to their products, while providing open source runtimes to deploy to a wide variety of platforms. With Rive, designers and developers collaborate to make apps, websites, and games stand out with animated user interfaces and hero moments that inform, guide, and engage. Data visualizations that shape narratives around complex information. Animated icons, stickers, and emojis that help convey human emotions across digital channels. Rich characters like assistants, mascots, cartoons, heroes, and villains. 1 year ago, we released Rive for the Web, giving everyone the power to create interactive animations in their browsers. But our pro-level designers and developers need the highest quality app and the fastest possible performance. So today, we're excited to announce Rive for Windows Desktop. We use Flutter to build our desktop app for Windows, avoiding the legacy dependencies that come with browser-based platforms. Flutter widgets provide a great starting point for our UI layout management and interactions, while also giving us the opportunity to easily customize the application experience for our specific needs. Flutter provides a truly native experience, with Dart compiled to machine code for each desktop platform, leading to efficient memory usage and low overhead for all CPU operations. This puts the best possible performance in the hands of Rive professionals on Windows desktop and tablet computers. Leveraging Flutter and CodeMagic, we can deploy straight to the Microsoft Store, giving our users a standardized installation experience, easy updates, and confidence in the app's security. Check out this complex file we've got running in Rive for Windows. We have multiple artboards that all have their own animations. We then use nested artboards to create a rich scene. It's running all the separate animations at the same time, but we have more animations in this scene, which we can run in conjunction with each other using our state machine. As this state machine is running, you can see that we can interact with the inputs and make all the various animations and nested artboards react in real time. While it's running, we can quickly pan around the stage, zoom in and out, and even resize the entire window without skipping a beat. This is the power of Rive for Windows Desktop built with Flutter. Look for Rive in the Microsoft Store soon. We're so excited to see what you create with it.
All right, so the reason I wanted to share this one is mainly this app blows me away every time I've seen it. It truly reminds me of an Adobe After Effects level editing experience with the per keyframe and the really high-end animations that you're able to get. I've also used some Rive animations in my Flutter apps, and it's really cool because you can programmatically switch between different animations that you pack into the file. But I thought it was also unique to share here because this was our first example of a web to desktop migration and the multi-platform support that you can get with Flutter Desktop, being able to deploy, here they said Windows, but also to Linux and Mac OS, all off of one code base. So that's really exciting that you're able to do that. It also showcased the higher performance for graphic intense applications, being able to run everything real time and resize and use all of the native gestures of panning and zooming was really impressive. And the underlying technology here was the use of Flutter's Canvas kit helped enable this very performant version of Rive. And they were comparing this to other web frameworks. This is traditionally compared now to Electron.js. Electron.js is a very popular JavaScript framework for building desktop applications, and it's used to build Slack, Discord, VS Code, and some other stuff there. So we've done a comparison in the past. We could do that again if people are interested in that. But both startup, bundle size, and performance right now, Flutter is beating Electron on desktop. So that's really exciting to see. So that is all the examples I have to share today. Brandon also asked me to put together a checklist of should I use Flutter on my app, and I made this really easy. Do you have an application? Yes, you should probably use Flutter, unless you need SEO. This is still, to this day, the biggest gripe that I have with Flutter. Reasons you would need SEO is like, if you have a marketplace, if you have a blog, stuff like that, where you need content to be indexed on the internet, then that is why you should not use Flutter. You're still going to need a modern web framework to do websites really, really well. But if you have a web admin console or a web app where it's literally just the application, you should feel comfortable using Flutter. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll have a marketing site that's built in a modern web framework for SEO, and then I'll have the app hosted at app.whatever.my domain is.com, so I can still build the application if it's cross-platform in Flutter and get the SEO benefits on my actual marketing site. But at this point, there's almost no reason you should stray away from using Flutter. You got complex hardware, we can do that. All the geolocation, all of the out-of-the-box stuff. There's almost no reason you should use Flutter now. So, yeah, if you haven't tried it yet, definitely give it a try building your next project. Other than that, that's all I have to share for the talk today. I did find a resource earlier today that I'd like to share with you guys, built by the community, and it's being pushed by Flutter.dev now, but it's called itsallwidgets.com. And this is really cool. If you have your own projects going on, you can actually share that you've built your app in Flutter, and this is going to maybe get you some free traffic, who knows. But we're also going to try and get our live streams listed here, and you can list yourself as a developer for hire, all kinds of things. So if you're a Flutter developer, get on this website. It looks really cool. Share your project. Who knows? You might make some cool connections on that.
I was going to say, can you speak to anything that Saba is saying about his BLE app?
Yeah, let me look at this real quick. Yeah, so Saba, we've actually done a couple BLE projects here, and I can feel your Bluetooth issues. However, from our experience, it hasn't been the Flutter implementation. It's been just the underlying Bluetooth technology in general being kind of quirky on Android and iOS. To be honest, I think something is coming soon to replace or update Bluetooth to where we get a little bit more stability out of it. But right now, just Bluetooth itself seems to be the problem. The Flutter integrations of it aren't too terrible.
Do you know anything about, I think he was talking about push, and he was saying, I wonder if that communicates over BLE.
I do believe it did at that point communicate over BLE. Now that it's been purchased by Whoop, there might be a different sort of chip that they're using to interact with the device, but I'm not sure. Yeah, so at first glance, seems like there's many plugin choices for a task, but then you hone in on some of them, and they're not maintained, only a few. Yes, definitely the Flutter is just getting to a point in general where packages are starting to get outdated. So like, obviously this is a Flutter favorite, so it's gonna be great. But if I were to just search like Bluetooth, for example, we've done some stuff with Bluetooth recently, so I might be able to call out some packages here. I can look at these actually. So like we had used, or one of our packages had used Flutter Blue, and you have Flutter Blue, and then you have Flutter Blue Plus. But you have the Flutter Blue normal being updated 24 months ago, and then Flutter Blue Plus being updated 56 days ago. And if you actually get into reading, it's pretty much because the original Flutter Blue team's just not maintaining it anymore, and a different team has picked up the original code base since it was open source, and they're maintaining it under this other package now. So this is something that most frameworks have a problem with. Like if you go on NPM, it's like basically that issue times 1,000 because there's so many packages on here now that are just all JavaScript packages. So I'm hoping, just like you probably are, that Flutter will find a good way to kick packages off, or at least make bigger denotation saying this hasn't been updated in a long time, don't use it. But yeah, we're gonna have to wait and see how Flutter handles just their ecosystem getting older.
It's funny, he called out both those packages that we talked about.
Yeah. Yeah, typically, Saba, the only time I get very concerned is when it's longer than probably 6 months ago, because Flutter moves so quickly. But again, if you're willing to put in the work, you can always fork this and update it yourself, which is great. But I know no one has time to maintain all the different packages they use in their Flutter apps. And of course, like you said, getting things merged, obviously in this package, there's 11 things waiting to get merged from contributors that whoever owns this package hasn't actually merged together. So it does seem like there also should be a better way to handle that. Hopefully we get to in the future, where there's like a community repository where if enough contributors vote that something gets put in or something like that. But right now, only the core team that owns the repository can actually merge things.
I had a small question.
Yeah.
Like, we just got a sampling, an international sampling of like different teams and apps of different scales and different dimensions. And it seemed like most of them, or like a common refrain was, we have a small team.
Yeah.
Which I think that would make a lot of sense. If you had a big team, then you would maybe be more willing to absorb the, managing two code bases for some kind of pristine experience on those platforms. Do you find that is like does the people who develop in Flutter, do they skew on teams on the smaller side, even if it has a big range? I'm sure
skew definitely, but like Nubank I think was the one example that was the exact contradiction to that. And they also did it in the partial rollout way, which I thought was interesting. Like the big companies that we typically see using Flutter are on like green grass projects, like brand new, that's not already been built, or maybe it's something so old that needs to be rebuilt, and then they would consider using something like Flutter. But a lot of big companies move very slowly, so it's understanding that it's going to take a while to get them to switch. But having, Wells Fargo rebuild their entire core app in Flutter is just, they're gonna, one, either have to train all their Android iOS developers to use Flutter or fire everybody and hire a whole new team and then build an entire new app, which is just gonna be a multi-year process. But there are some very big companies on here that just didn't have any videos. It's more like articles.
Right.
Let me see if I can get back to the showcase. So like some of these are BMW's new app where it hooks up to the car with Flutter.
Which is probably one of like dozens of apps that company probably has, right, for different purposes.
Exactly. Or ByteDance, you know, they're behind TikTok, I believe. TikTok's not built in Flutter, but they have a million other apps and some of them are. Again, eBay Motors was rebuilt in Flutter, so that's a fairly big one. But again, not the main eBay app, but their Motors app, because that was probably a grass green project. We want to separate this from our core app. Some cool stuff, iRobot, Rive again on here. Some generative art stuff. They do have a video for this one, which is really cool. Tencent, which is a big gaming company. So like they have all kinds of stuff. And it's really interesting reading through these. Like Rose, for example, is the Excel spreadsheet of the future. And a big thing for them was being able to have a huge amount of data on screen without slowing it down. So that's one reason they use Flutter. Tonal is a workout thing that we have at home. And it's got this very high-tech pulley system and everything, and their app is built in Flutter. So the list goes on and on. I think you'll start seeing more big names hop on as the years progress. Eventually, it'll get to the point where, do we want to maintain these code bases? How much money are we losing? And once the amount of money they're losing, having twice the
some tipping point.
Yeah, there will be a tipping point, and then Flutter will be a good switch.
Flutter has existed for how many years?
I think it's been out since around 2017.
Right.
But it's only become really viable in like the last couple of years.
Sure. So to me, it's like, I would, with more time of it existing as a viable option, you get, the feeling of maturity, and therefore the giant corporations more willing to hop onto it.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, React Native's been around longer. They've had some big names, but they've also had some big names leave. Like Airbnb was originally built React Native, and it no longer is.
Oh, interesting.
They went back to being completely native. They said React Native had actually, long run, caused them more headaches.
Interesting.
So,
where do you learn something like that?
Does
that get reported? Or you're hearing from employees?
I'm consuming articles. So like I'm on Medium, just article.
Okay.
And it's just all mobile. And right now my feed's just Flutter and mobile stuff.
Sure. Okay, got it. But like devs talking individually.
Yeah.
Sharing their experience or what they're hearing. Okay.
I think that was actually a big news release because that was kind of React Native's like cornerstone.
Got it.
Was Airbnb.
Okay.
Cool. The next talk will again be next month, and we're going to be talking about Flutterflow. This is not something we use day to day, but for people who are just getting in and haven't programmed before, Flutterflow is a drag and drop Flutter editor, so you can literally just drag and drop items in there. We're going to kind of mess around with it, and then I'll also give a review on the kind of code that it outputs and what to look out for. So yeah,